Hi everyone and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to paint a still life, a little still life painting, very small. You can see it's this little canvas board. I don't know the exact size. These are very cheap. You can get them at any, the Poe Market, any art supply store, online of course, and they usually do not cost more than 90 cents, maybe $1, €1, because we're in Europe. But wherever you reside, maybe it's $1, maybe it's even 50 cents only, so you can get them very, very cheap. You can also of course make them yourself, which is a little bit more work and effort, so maybe it's easier to just grab them from the store, fresh from the store, like one of those juicy plums that we're going to paint. And yes, the title of the painting, I'm not sure if it's a good title. Maybe you have a better idea for it. I don't know. I just picked this one because it was, I don't know, it sounded nice and poetic. But yeah, I also had some other titles in my mind that were a bit more, a bit more on the nose or a little bit cringe, and kind of have a, this indirect secondary meanings. Yeah, but anyway, this is the most peachy and the most poetic one that I came up with on the spot. And this is actually a painting that I did last year, so in case you're watching this right at the beginning of the new year in 2025, I wish you a happy new year, by the way. In case you're watching this any point in time later, this was done at the end of 2024, so I think a few days before Christmas, or 1 day or 2 days before Christmas, and I just was in the mood to paint something very small, very without pressure, and just a quick still life. And this was done within, I think, 1.5 hours. It was not much longer, maybe even a bit shorter, but I would say around 1.5 hours. Usually, right, we get this time perception thing wrong as soon as we step in front of the canvas, and then when we step back, we're like, okay, this was like, let me say 1.5, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. For bigger paintings, sometimes you feel like, yeah, this is probably about 10 hours, and then when you really calculate it and you think back, maybe it was more like 11 hours, 12 hours. So sometimes we get it wrong, and I think that's a very that's a very typical thing when you get into the zone, when you get into this flow state a bit more, and time just passes so unbelievably quickly, and it's mind-boggling. It's beautiful. Obviously it's beautiful because that means you're having fun, you're having a good time. If you don't feel like it's dragging or it's boring or it's like, what am I doing, constantly like this. This was one of those paintings because it was such a short amount of time, and it was such a simple subject also, and I just was really in the mood for it. It was very spontaneous. I had such a good time from the beginning to the end, which is very rare with painting anything, really. It's like, it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of joy, and that should ultimately be the goal, right, of doing art, of making art, to bring oneself joy, to bring others joy, and to just create something life-affirming and beautiful. It's as simple as that. It can be more complicated, if you want to get philosophical about it, if you want to get intellectual about it, if you want to traverse to any of these fields, or spiritual. There's of course a big spiritual component with painting and drawing and art in general, music especially, I would argue. Music is one of the most spiritual crafts and artistic forms out there, together with painting. But I also feel sculpting, and maybe your thing is interior design, or maybe you're doing something completely different. Whatever it is, if you feel this moment where you get in the zone, or where you have an easier time to delve into this flow state, I think that's always a nice surprise. Or maybe you do it willfully. Maybe you practice, how do I get into this state, how do I get closer to losing time in a good way, not losing time, but feeling like time is just flowing effortlessly, and every mark you make, or everything that you do in the moment, is just pure joy, and you just feel this love, radiating from your heart, and this gratitude. And that was one of those paintings where I just felt immense gratitude for being allowed to paint, that I've been that I'm allowed by the universe to pick up the brush, to have these oil paints ready, to have this easel, by the way, that you can see that I'm using right in this video here. I got as a Christmas present, so that was absolutely beautiful surprise. I was not expecting that at all, like absolutely not. I was not wishing for anything, right? But my parents gifted me this beautiful easel, and it's I don't know what size exactly. It's, I would say, medium. It's for a little bit bigger paintings, you know, you can make some portraits on it, but it's also not too big, so you could theoretically pick it up for the go, you know, if you want to get out on the field and paint plein air painting, you know, basically in the fresh air, you know, painting landscapes, which is something I plan to do in the coming year, at least once a month, you know, so every two weeks. On the weekend, I try to implement that into my routine, into my artistic practices. Yeah, and this is also one of the things I wanted to talk about with you, is like these New Year's resolutions, or these general resolutions. If you start a new week, if you start a new month, or maybe, you know, other milestones, like a specific birthday, you know, you hit your 30s, you know, because I had my 30th birthday just a few weeks ago. I was also like getting into this mindset again, like weeks and weeks before that already, like, oh man, you know, it's another milestone, you know, you do this self-reflective, introspective exercise. I wouldn't call it an exercise, I'm just liking another word now, but you know, this you get into this weird interior perceptive mode where you're thinking, okay, what did I achieve? You know, what are the milestones? Did I achieve something? You know, you get super critical. And at the same time, yeah, there's a lot of gratitude. There's a lot of gratitude and love for what I'm allowed to do. Again, you know, I feel really blessed to have the privilege to pick up a brush, to pick up oil paints, a canvas, you know, and to just smudge some paint together and see what's coming out on the other side, you know. And it's not something intellectual. That's the funny thing. Painting is not intellectual at all, to me at least. To some it might be super intellectual, and it's a lot of theory, and it's a lot of planning and constructing, and yes, sure, that's a part, you know. This particular painting here is not an example of that, of course, because it's more spontaneous, and it's really just you look at it and you try to paint what you see, you know, maybe in a little bit more impressionistic style, and your own style emerges naturally out of that anyway. But generally speaking, I would say it's this mixture between technicality and imagination and what your heart desires, you know, at the moment. And I know this all sounds very woo-woo and very philosophical and spiritual, and you know, whatever word you want to attribute to it. But what I just want to express with this is, no matter what point of view, no matter what perspective you want to instill into the painting, the result will nevertheless be different for anyone, depending on how you're viewing it. You know, for me, this is a beautiful still life, or it was a lovely still life to paint. And it's far from perfect, that's obvious, you know, but it's this wet on wet technique, right, the alla prima technique. So you don't wait until the oil colors dry, you know, you don't wait a few days or the next day, depending on what mediums you use, and paint in layers, but it's like you paint right into the wet paint and you push it around, and sometimes the colors smudge a bit, and that's sometimes also a good thing. You want that. To create this effect, you know. Some effects are actually easier to achieve when you paint wet and wet, and some things are a bit harder. So if you want to create really clean lines and edges and just have the purest colors possible, then of course you need to layer it, and you need to have a longer process, which is also fun, you know. No judgment in that. I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. I'm trying different methods. I'm trying to experiment, and this is also what I want to do in the coming year. So yeah, let me know, what do you think about New Year's resolutions or resolutions in general? Do you think it's absolutely ridiculous? Is it Is it something you tried once or twice but failed maybe to implement, you know, some new habits or routines or whatever goals you set yourself to? Or is it something where you repeatedly come back and you say, yeah, absolutely, I'm not just gonna do New Year's resolutions, but I'm actually doing monthly resolutions, you know, and I'm gonna make my to-do lists at the beginning of the months, or I don't know, whatever it is, you know. I personally, I kind of tend to have a lot of to-do lists, even during the day, like I revise my to-do lists. And in the past months or in the past year or maybe even longer, I kind of dropped it because I felt I needed to drop it because of other obligations. And I had a feeling that every time I'm starting to write a to-do list, for whatever reason, I could not finish the tasks that were upon it. And funnily, most often the most important tasks, so the ones where I was like the day before thinking, oh, absolutely, I'm gonna finish this, or I'm gonna do this project, or I'm gonna do this painting, or I'm gonna, I don't know, write a few pages for that book. And then the next day, none of that, but other tasks that I either had to do or felt more drawn to, strangely. And now the way I want to go about it in this year is actually a bit more intuitive, but getting back to this, not in an OCD way, hopefully, but more planned, more structured day-to-day routines, you know, besides work. You know, I'm teaching online, I'm teaching German actually, and then when I'm not teaching in the free space, in the free time, I'm trying, of course, to be in nature, you know, to just do something in nature, to appreciate nature. And we're going on a lot of walks, my wife and I, and just, you know, just trying to have a downtime, also a healthy downtime, and to just be a little bit. But besides that, that is one part. That's not a big part, because most of the time I'm trying to actively, you know, work on something, or either learn something, you know, like new painting techniques. I'm trying to wrap my head around color, you know, color theory, because I never did that in the past. When I was a little kid, I loved to draw, I loved to invent things, you know, on paper. But then school came, and then university came, and during all those years, you know, like years and years, where you look back and you're like, oh, I kind of never did the things that I wanted to do in that time. It felt like the creativity was really pushed to the side, not pushed out of me, because it was always there. I always did something creative. I did, you know, films. I made short films and edited them, and sometimes even did, you know, the sound design for that, and I wrote the scripts and things like that, and I did the camera and editing and things like that. But it's nothing on a big scale, you know. It was short films. And for some time I was really passionate about filmmaking. But then again, it came back to this, you know, art in its purest form. And what could be purer than just painting, you know, painting and drawing. And so that's where I'm back at, and I'm trying to head to that direction again, to that goal. That's at least one of my big goals for the coming year and for the next 2-3 years, to just get better and better and practice more and more, and to combine this, you know, realistic aspects and the technical aspects and the know-how, you know, the craftsmanship behind all of this, with the more imaginative aspects. And I hope to merge this. And yeah, I hope you follow my journey here on this channel. I would love to have you on board. It would be really a privilege. And yeah, let me know in the comments what your New Year's resolutions are, and yeah, what you would like to see maybe in a future video. And yeah, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and see you next time.